had people completely threaten me who I do not know, who are now being investigated by different agencies by making threats through social media, all because of a case. In some cases, I think they may be family members of certain people. In other cases, I think they're followers of the case. But all of that kind of stuff outside of the courtroom, especially the way it played out today, has implications inside the courtroom. And I think that's the part that people forget. When you're calling for justice, no matter who you're calling for justice for, we've seen justice for Meeks, as that being Romica, that was her nickname. We've seen justice for people calling for justice for Courthouse. The problem is when this kind of stuff happens, justice gets kind of muddy. I know a lot of people were fired up from a previous live that I did talking about details of the case. I do want to remind people that when I spoke about those details of the case, and I had that paper in front of me, that information came from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. That was not for me. So the fist bump allegation, all of that came from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office by way of what they call a proffer. Okay, so they compose a proffer which outline, and they do it for every case, that outlines what they have investigated or figured out to be issues and things that have come out in their fact-finding period in that case. So that was not my word. One thing that I'm not is I don't know any of these people, meaning I do not know the family of Romica. I met them by way of journalism. Like they wanted to get their story out. They found me. We ended up doing an interview. I do not personally know them. Same thing with Carlos. His family had reached out to me. I believe it was his sister via email. And that is how I was linked up with Carlos. I asked his sister in that email for her phone number. So she was, during the time before charges even came about, she was letting me know some of what the details on her side, to her knowledge, were. So in court today, what transpired was, again, Quadasia Holly Johnson's attorneys, they argued for her to, essentially, they were pressing for her to be let out. Rightfully so. They can do that. That is their legal right to do that. She is pregnant. Prior to this, she did not have a lengthy criminal history. In fact, she had one thing that was a misdemeanor, so not even worth talking about. I mean, it was nothing on her record prior to this. So from a legal standpoint, that is something that an attorney will argue. It does not matter who it is. That attorney would then argue that my client is not a flight risk. My client has never, felt the need, and she had a CCW. She was a concealed carry holder, and there is nothing that indicates that she had fired that weapon at someone or pulled out her gun to shoot and kill someone.
In the halls of justice, there are two kinds of battles. The one fought with legal briefs, witness testimony, and a judge's gavel. And the one fought with raw grief, searing anger, and fists in a courthouse hallway. For the family of Romica Meeks and for Quadasia Holly Johnson, these two battles violently collided on December 23, 2025, exposing just how fragile the search for truth can be. This isn't just another court update. This is the story of a ticking clock, a controversial self-defense claim, and the journalist in the crosshairs trying to report it all. If you want to understand the real stakes before Holly Johnson walks back into court on January 7, 2026, you need to see the full picture. Stick with me. And right now, for true crime coverage that goes beyond the headlines, subscribe to True Crime Unraveled and hit the bell. To understand the explosion, we have to go back to the spark. The morning of September 8, 2025, on West Cermak Road in Chicago's South Loop. Romica Meeks Blackman, 31 years old, had just dropped her 6-year-old son off at school. It was around 9:06 a.m. At virtually the same time, the father of her child, identified in court only as Witness 1, had parked nearby. In his car was Quadasia Holly Johnson and their 6-month-old infant. A verbal argument began between the two women. According to prosecutors, the man tried to break it up but then became physical with Romica, placing her in a chokehold. Then, the situation turned deadly. Prosecutors state that Holly Johnson walked back to her own car, retrieved a gun, and shot Romica Meeks multiple times. After the shooting, a detail emerged that would become central to the case. prosecutors allege Johnson and the baby's father shared a fist bump. Romica was rushed to the hospital, but did not survive. Now, here is where the legal complexity begins. Holly Johnson was a concealed carry license holder. From the very beginning, she claimed she acted in self-defense. This claim is the single biggest reason why, after being questioned that day, she was not immediately charged. For 3 long months, as Romica's family grieved and demanded answers, investigators worked to build a case that could overcome that self-defense argument. The break came on December 4th, 2025. Holly Johnson was arrested at her home in Des Plaines and charged with first-degree murder. At her initial detention hearing, her defense made a compelling plea for her release. Johnson was 7 weeks pregnant and had no significant prior criminal history. Her attorneys argued she was not a flight risk. But the judge looked at the evidence presented by the state, particularly the alleged fist bump, and made a powerful statement. Celebrating in the street after shooting someone is not self-defense. Bail was denied. This brings us to the powder keg of December 23rd. Another status hearing. Another packed courtroom. According to journalist Tia Ewing of Fox 32 Chicago, who has doggedly covered this case, Holly Johnson's family was let out of the courtroom first and lingered in the hallway. When Romica's family exited, the two groups, one supporting the accused, one mourning the victim, were face-to-face. Words were exchanged. The tension that had been building for months overflowed. In the chaos that followed, the baby's father, Carlos Smith, was seen being escorted away in handcuffs by sheriff's deputies. Public reaction to this was immediate and divided. Some commenters online argued the detention was a clever way to remove him out of harm's way, while others saw it as a long-overdue consequence, with one stating, Carlos was the aggressor. This confrontation did more than cause a scene. It risked poisoning the very well of justice. As one observer noted, public displays like this can surely prejudice a jury. Now, let's talk about the woman reporting from the center of this storm, Tia Ewing. In her reports, Ewing has been meticulous in stating that the most damning details, like the fist bump, come directly from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, not from her. She's positioned herself as a conduit for the facts, not an advocate for a side. But when you report facts that people don't want to hear, you become a target. Ewing has publicly stated that she has received threats and that people have tried to get her fired over her coverage. Look at the dynamics. Who has the most to lose from a clear, factual narrative of that September morning? The defense's entire strategy rests on painting a picture of justified fear. A report detailing a coordinated physical attack followed by a celebratory gesture directly undermines that. It's not hard to connect the dots. The attacks on Ewing seem less about her getting the story wrong, and more about someone wanting her to stop telling a story that hurts their case. And this leads to the haunting question the public is asking. What about Carlos Smith? If the state's narrative is true, that he helped restrain Romica and then celebrated her death, why is he not facing charges? This perceived gap is a major source of the public's frustration and the family's anguish. Every day he remains free, for many, feels like a betrayal of the quest for full accountability. The courthouse confrontation showed that this frustration isn't just theoretical, it's a live wire.
So what happens now?
The case against Holly Johnson is strong on paper, first-degree murder charges, witness accounts, a judge who rejected the self-defense premise at bail. But any criminal case is fragile. A self-defense claim, even a controversial one, can create reasonable doubt for a jury. A key witness could change their story. The public circus, like the December 23rd clash, could give the defense grounds to argue for a change of venue or taint the jury pool. All of this hangs in the balance as we look to January 7th, the next court date. Will the prosecution's case hold? Will the defense's strategy shift? And in the middle of it all, a little boy is trying to have a Christmas without his mother, and a journalist is trying to do her job while looking over her shoulder. What do you think? Is the public's anger toward Carlos Smith justified, or does it risk undermining the trial? Can Holly Johnson's legal team successfully sell a self-defense argument to a jury? Drop your theories in the comments below. We read every single one, and this conversation is vital. If you want to follow every twist in this complex case, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps more people find this channel. Don't forget to subscribe to True Crime Unraveled on YouTube and follow True Crime Unraveled TV on Facebook and TikTok. We won't look away. Thank you for watching. We see your comments. We appreciate your passion for Romica and for the truth. I'll see you in the next one. Justice for Romica Meeks.
Hi. I'll let you guys come in. Hello, hello, hello. Hi everybody. Hi everybody. So come on in. Of course, you know what happened outside of the courthouse. There is a video trending from TT Barfield, who was outside, who captured what unfolded outside of the courthouse. I kind of want to walk you through what I have surmised happened that led up to that point. We did have a producer who was there at the time, a field producer working for Fox 32 that kind of filled me in on everything that unfolded. This is a story that we will be covering on air today as well. So I do have some information based on that. So come on in. So let me first say that I cannot confirm officially what happened outside. All I can tell you is that who allegedly got arrested out of all of this. There's been varying accounts of what happened. Some people say, I don't want to get into the weeds of what we don't know to be concrete, because I think one of the things that I think can be misconstrued in this is, you know, everything we're saying about this case, we have to be responsible. As a journalist, I have to be absolutely responsible about everything that is said about this case, because I do know that it has a lot of heightened emotions. So it's really tough. Hold on a second. Give me 1 second, you guys. 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. All right. So with that being said, I feel like we have to be super responsible. I know a lot of people were fired up from a previous live that I did talking about details of the case. I do want to remind people that when I spoke about those details of the case, and I had that paper in front of me, that information came from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. That was not for me. So the fist bump allegation, all of that came from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office by way of what they call a proffer. Okay, so they compose a proffer which outline, and they do it for every case, that outlines what they have investigated or figured out to be issues and things that have come out in their fact-finding period in that case. So that was not my words. I know that Carlos went on to do a live that said a fist bump never happened. I personally, that didn't come from me. That came from the proffer from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. So any lives that you've seen, all of that came from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, not from me. So you guys need to understand that. And I think that got people really riled up. Listen, one thing, and I'm going to get into what happened today. One thing that I'm not is I don't know any of these people, meaning I do not know the family of Romica. I met them by way of journalism. Like they wanted to get their story out. They found me. we ended up doing an interview. I do not personally know them. Same thing with Carlos. His family had reached out to me. I believe it was his sister via email. And that is how I was linked up with Carlos. I asked his sister in that email for her phone number. So she was, during the time before charges even came about, she was letting me know some of what the details on her side, to her knowledge, were. And that it was very clear to me that Carlos wouldn't be speaking to me at that time because legally they have been advised. When I say they, I'm talking about Carlos and also Quadeja Holly Johnson. At that time, were told not to speak to the media. But I was able to find some details out through her by way of her brother. So then fast forward, Quadeja Holly Johnson is taken into custody, and that is how Carlos even had my number, was by way of his sister, who had contacted me months prior via email. Quadeja Holly Johnson's cousin or aunt, I believe, I don't remember, and I don't want to misspeak here, but somebody that is related to her, who also knows the PR space, contacted me as well. At some point we exchanged phone numbers, and it was very clear to me that Quadeja Holly Johnson did not want to speak because her attorney had instructed her not to speak. It was never that she didn't have a platform by me to speak. This is not a situation where I'm taking sides here. I don't know anybody here. The only people that I feel any type of absolute pouring of my heart out for is obviously anybody in this situation who's lost. That's all sides, right? And especially the children in this. This is who I feel the worst for. So while people are online arguing, trying to call for my job and all this stuff, who you need to be pouring your love and heart out to are the children that are literally at a deficit because of this situation. But we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on all this other outside stuff. You got kids that are caught up in the middle of this. One in the womb who was not here, who was growing up in a womb that's probably stressed out in jail. One that is, I don't know where the little baby in all of this is. And I say baby because we know that child is not, I don't think the child was quite 1 year old yet, maybe 9 months or so, almost 10 months. And then we have Carlos Jr., who's out here without parents right now. So, okay, so I want to clear that up. Anything that I read out of the proper, the fist bump and all of that, and what witness one said that they saw and all of this, that came from the Cook County State's attorney. Okay, let's get into what happened today. So in court today, what transpired was, again, Quadeja Holly Johnson's attorneys, they argued for her to, essentially, they were pressing for her to be let out. Rightfully so. They can do that. That is their legal right to do that. She is pregnant. Prior to this, she did not have a lengthy criminal history. In fact, she had one thing that was a misdemeanor, so not even worth talking about. I mean, it was nothing on her record prior to this. So from a legal standpoint, that is something that an attorney will argue. It does not matter who it is. That attorney would then argue that my client is not a flight risk. My client has never, felt the need. And she had a CCW. She was a concealed carry holder. And there is nothing that indicates that she had fired that weapon at someone or pulled out her gun to shoot and kill someone. Allegedly, because we don't know everything unfolded. We're seeing the aftermath video, okay? So prior to that, based on what we know, there's nothing that showed that in her history. So an attorney is obviously going to argue my client is pregnant. She had no prior criminal history. She should be let out is what they're going to say. So that was what they tried to have happen in court. That did not happen. That did not happen at all in court. What ended up happening was she was not let out yet again. So this is the second time. And in fact, she will reappear in court on January 7th. Here's where it gets interesting. So our field producer who was there said that Quadeja Holly Johnson's family was let out first out of the courtroom. And that they lingered a little bit in the hallway. And then after that, Romica's family was let out, but there was still leftover from supporters of Quadeja Holly Johnson. I don't know who exchanged words with who. I'm not here to say that because I was not there to know. And even though my field producer, our field producer of Fox 32 was there, it was not clear who fought, who started the drama first. That is unknown here. What we know is words were exchanged. Now, allegedly, people are saying that, and obviously there's two sides, right? Really three. There's people that are supporters of Romica. She's had supporters this entire time. Since she died, people have been calling for Quadeja Holly Johnson to be charged. And then you have those of Quadeja Holly Johnson that believes that, you know, she's innocent in this and that she did the right thing, okay? And then you have people that are just talking that know nothing about either one of them. They're just followers of the story. Well, we don't know what transpired outside of that courthouse, except for to say that some people are saying that Carlos approached the family. Okay, that's what some people are saying. Some people are, and the family being Romica's family. Then other people are saying that it was the opposite. Okay, that it was the opposite and that the family approached Carlos or said something to Carlos. I don't know which one is true. Okay, because we're looking, the video we have is everybody going out. You can hear stuff being said, arguing back and forth. It's both sides. And the video that we have, you hear both sides. It's no indication of who kicked it off in our video from when the argument transpired in the hallways of the Layton Criminal Courthouse. You hear both sides saying something. Now, outside, we don't know because we were not out there. TT Barfield, who recorded video outside, where you hear Romica's sister basically saying, you ruined that girl's life and you ruined that girl's life, speaking of Quadeja Holly Johnson. And, you know, my sister, you know, is obviously not here. That was words that she was hurling at Carlos. So again, we don't know who kicked off what outside. What I can tell you is that from the video, we see that, at least this is what I'm being told, that Carlos is then put in handcuffs, brought back in the courthouse, and then family members of Romica, too, one which we know for sure is a family member of Romica or related to Romica or known of Romica because that person has on pink, is also brought back into the courthouse and is in handcuffs with the sheriff. The other person is unknown. So we can at least say Carlos was brought back into the courthouse, and so was a member of Romica's family, based on the fact that as a support to Romica, the family and those who are allies of the family have been wearing pink. So that we do know. Let's get into what happens in a case like this. There's very heightened emotion. So who knows how this is going to play out. The judge has a very big job here. The judge's number one job in terms of the functionality of the courtroom, of the proceedings, is safety. That is the number one thing here. The problem is that as fights and stuff like this happens, people get in front of the courthouse. Who knows, they're going back to their cars. Who knows what is happening on the outside that can impact the inside of the courtroom. What happens is the judge has a very difficult decision to make. And in past cases, I have seen where judges will then limit who can be in that courtroom. So the judge may say media and only direct family of both individuals. When I say both, the victim and also those, the defendant in this case, can be allowed in the courtroom. So there's several different things that are happening here. So yes, there was a fight on the outside and people are pointing the finger, but what happened on the outside has implications for inside the courtroom. And in fact, there's other layers of what could happen on a legal level when there's this much emotion. I've had people completely threaten me who I do not know, who are now being investigated by different agencies by making threats through social media, all because of a case. In some cases, I think they may be family members of certain people. In other cases, I think they're followers of the case. But all of that kind of stuff outside of the courtroom, especially the way it played out today, has implications inside the courtroom. And I think that's the part that people forget. When you're calling for justice, no matter who you're calling for justice for, we've seen justice for Meeks, as that being Romica, that was her nickname. We've seen justice for people calling for justice for Quadeja. The problem is when this kind of stuff happens, justice gets kind of muddy. And what I mean by that is you may not ever, depending on who you are, you may not get to see this play out because the judge literally may limit who can be in the courtroom. The judge may literally say, the proceedings, therefore, moving forward, will just be this small group of people, and you can watch on Zoom. So that is the problem with this, is that, I get the emotion part of it. It is a lot of reasons to be mad. There's a lot of reasons to be emotional about it, but let the justice system do their job. Quit calling out people for saying things that you don't know anything about. It's a way to handle things in a proper professional way. And so far what I'm seeing is people are getting emotional about this case, rightfully so, but you're threatening people in the process. So I don't know who threatened who in this case, but what I do know is 3 people were arrested. So, and I did hear that as well, that Carlos was jumped. That is what I've heard too. So there's been different things and varying accounts of what I heard. I heard he approached the family, and as a result, he got jumped. Okay. I don't know which one is true. What I will know here shortly is I am waiting on the Cook County Sheriff's Department to get back to me on their narrative of things. They will have an official narrative of what happened, and they will also be able to tell me if indeed all 3 individuals that we see in that video, if they were charged as a result of the fight outside of the courtroom or courthouse. And technically, the way that they brought them back in was interesting to me. Normally, if you fight inside of a courthouse, you are then, arrested and charged and all of that. They were fighting outside. So it's going to be really interesting to see how, if they're charged, why they're charged, what the situation is. So that's whose narrative I'm going to use in this case, because here's the problem. So many different people in this whole totality of a bigger picture of things are very upset. They're exactly right, Victoria. They're Facebook lawyers and they're Facebook prosecutors. And different people are trying to get their narrative out, which may not be the truth. And in some cases is not the truth at all. And so I'm going to rely in this case. And listen, it's a hard line to tote when you're a journalist, because you've also seen in the past, not saying this is related to Cook County Sheriff's Department, but you've also seen in the past where law enforcement, especially if it involves, a police involved shooting, they're not always telling the truth. So it's a hard line to tote when trying to, go through the weeds and figure out what the truth is. So in this case, I am going to see what the Cook County Sheriff's Department gives back, and that is the guidance in which I will follow, because there are so many different layers of this onion and people trying to get their side out. And it's true. It's hard to trust the system. And oftentimes we don't trust the system, and we have good reason a lot of times not to trust the system. But as of right now, that will be the guidance I follow, unless I was to get somebody who was a man on the street who don't know nobody involved who could tell me what happened, because you've seen where this side wants this narrative out, that side wants that narrative out. The bottom line is to get into the weeds of violence and fighting and all of that stuff. The justice system will take care of it some way, somehow. So that's what I will say. That's all that I can say about that. That's not my position to say. I don't know. I've had a loved one murdered. That person did go to prison for the rest of their natural life. I was young when it happened to me. I could understand. And I was emotional then. I was much younger. I can understand the emotion, and I get it. I'm not saying don't be emotional. You have every right to be emotional. There are so many lives that have been uprooted from this. But in order for justice to truly be served, for you to have a front seat to whatever justice looks like for you, Quadasia's family, Romica's family, you have to give it time to play out. And now the next hearing could be, the judge could easily say, you know what? We will only have immediate family here. This person, this person, this person, this media, this media. So it's hard. And yes, you're absolutely right, Veronica Price, that it is easier for people to say when they're not the family. It's so easy, right? It's so easy to say what you would have, could have, should have done. And I agree with you. You're absolutely right. But I'm just saying, moving forward, hopefully there will be more security present, and that won't have to be the case, that moving forward, only a handful of people are allowed in a courtroom, because it has happened. That's all that I'm saying. But you're right. Everybody has a reason to feel how they feel. Lives have been uprooted. Children don't have parents. And it's a sucky situation all the way around. It's horrible all the way around. It absolutely is. So Romica, I hope I got your name right. You said one of the things that I agree the most with on this live. Easy to say when it's not your family member, and you're 100% right. It really is. Everybody could say what they think when it's not their family. So yeah, I will have a report on this on the news at 4 and 5. Again, waiting on the Cook County Sheriff's Department to at least give us the narrative that they've come up with after talking to all 3 individuals, if indeed they're going to be charged. If they're not going to be charged, we may never know what really played out, because then they won't have a reason to fully question them and get this person's side, that person's side. And I was trying to see in the video if, hold on, let me go back to this. I was trying to see if in that video they were wearing body cameras, anybody. Because that's also relevant too. Yeah, there's a lot of body cameras going around. So based off the body camera video, and since they were already outside, they should be able to give us a narrative of what unfolded, because they had on body cameras and they were already outside before the fight jumped off. Yeah, there's, I'm trying to see, is everybody around? Hold on. Yeah, 1, 2. I see most people I can identify. This video is moving so fast, but I would say most of these members of the Cook County Sheriff's Police have on body cam, so they would be able to hopefully give us a narrative of what happened. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Any new details, you can catch it here on my page a little later. Again, I agree with Romica. This is, it's easy to say when it's not your family. And I think part of the problem is a lot of this is being fueled by secret Facebook groups that are hidden to the public, but only have allowed a few members in. They're fueling anger, hate, and some of it is a little misplaced. Like, you're mad, in some cases, at the wrong people. Like, some of what I've seen about certain people in this is like, they didn't have anything to do with the charges. It's nothing they can do to bring charges. It's nothing I can do to bring charges. I'm not a Cook County prosecutor. I can't bring charges. And in fact, most people don't understand how it works. Police are the ones that present the charges to a Cook County prosecutor. In this case, and then they, depending on the kinds of cases, they can present it to a grand jury for indictment. There's so many different factors, and so a lot of the anger that I've seen online about, Quadesia being in jail and all of this is misplaced. I mean, Tina has nothing to do, and Tina being Tina McMiller being Romica's family has nothing to do with those charges. It's nothing she can do. She was not there. She was not a witness. She did not speak about being there because she couldn't, because she wasn't there. She has nothing to do with those charges. In my case, I wasn't there. I can't do anything about charges. I was not witness 1, witness 2, witness 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's a whole lot of anger, and I'm going to get that B kind of behavior online. And you guys are misplacing that anger at the wrong people. So I hope you figure that out. I know it's tough. It's tough losing somebody. It's tough losing somebody under these circumstances on both sides. I have been in some ways a crime victim, so I understand it. Again, I was younger, so maybe not fully understood. But again, it's easier to say when it's not your family. So I think one thing we have to do is just take a step back. I'm just here to report the facts on what we've learned today. And as soon as I learn more, I keep checking my email to see if there's been any updates that I can give you before I get off of here. And so far, no new updates, but I will have them on Fox 32 News at 4 and 5. And to my knowledge, we were the only news station there for this today, for this particular case. So we will probably at some point get all of the details of what unfolded. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you have a blessed rest of your day. And if I don't see you between now and then, have a blessed holiday. Take care of yourself. Merry Christmas.